Alright, welcome back, and we are ready to dive into the finale of the original Alien series. Next up, we have the 1997 film Alien Resurrection. This movie's reception is a little bit more than polarizing than Alien 3. Before we jump into this, let's talk about this movie's backstory. Ripley's character had been killed off because of the possibility of the Alien vs. Predator movie. She was not a fan of it. A lot of people clamored for it, but ever since that little scene in Predator 2, there had been lots of talks, comics have been made, action figures, and it looked like an Alien vs. Predator movie would be on the horizon. However, from the release of Alien Resurrection, it would be 7 more years before that movie would actually hit the theaters. There was a script that involved a newt being brought back to life. However, 20th Century Fox insisted that Ripley come back and that they bring her character back into the picture somehow, which just involved Ripley's character resurrected as Ripley 8 this time. This kind of adds a little bit positive into this movie because of the fact that in this movie, she's a little bit more than human, so they have more to work with. She has heightened senses, alien DNA, strength. There's some positive into this, and I will dive into that in a moment. Other positives, the cast was a lot better in this movie versus Alien 3. Joining Sigourney Weaver would be Ron Perlman, Winona Ryder. There's certain aspects about this movie that I wish were done differently because I feel like there's potential, and what was on the table it just wasn't executed correctly. Certain aspects of the movie feel like it has little direction, and that is in the story, and that impacts it so much, and I wish I could say otherwise. This movie takes place 200 years after the events of the last movie. Ripley has been successfully cloned after several failed attempts. Assigned name, Ripley 8. As said before, Ripley 8 is more than human. This movie takes an attempt to take the Ripley character into uncharted territory, which I think is really ballsy, and I'm gonna give this movie some points for this. She's emotionless towards humans, she's trying to remember her history, she even recalls a faint memory involving Newt in a deleted scene on the movie, and I think this is really compelling to add a little bit more depth to this character. The actual intent in this movie to resurrect Ripley is simply because of the fact that they want to retrieve the queen that was within her from the last movie. It pretty well just kind of rolls with this theme, big bad scientist. Let's get the queen, let's create xenomorphs, let's study them, maybe we can control them, things will go bad. Unfortunately, it does not have Weyland Yutani in it, and it's kind of a slap in the face because of the fact you had a company that was so built up through the last 3 movies, and it just kind of has said, oh, it was purchased by Walmart, or it's gone under, basically. Yes, that was the gag they went with in this movie, and this movie does have a little touch of humor. It felt like they were trying to be a little clever, adding a certain humor in spots, but I feel like some of it feels forced. At this point, the movie feels interesting and has originality, introducing a group of mercenaries who deliver some kidnapped humans that were in stasis, with the further purpose now of the scientists using these unfortunate suckers as hosts as they awaken. Our motley crew encounters Ripley 8, and things go south once the xenomorphs get loose on the ship. Then you have Call, and it's unveiled that she's an android, and these movies always seem to have at least one android somewhere in the movie. However, I feel like hers is very uninteresting because I really didn't seem to care once she was revealed to be one. Yeah, it was kind of a plot twist moment, but it wasn't nothing that kind of blew my brains, kind of like on Alien 1. Aliens with Bishop, it was known right from the get-go that he was one, but for Call, it's not established till later in the movie, and I feel like the audience really isn't given enough time to get acquainted or care. Down the line, Call sets the ship on a collision course for Earth. This, people, is it. This is all there is to Alien Resurrection. It feels like an incomplete script. It feels like somebody had made this amazing drawing piece, and then after that they left it alone for days, and then after that they came back and just finished it in a few seconds and called it good and turned it in. Yeah, this is where I get a little critical because the storyline just doesn't have a lot of substance to it. There's nothing huge that really happens, After one point, it's simply, hey, we gotta escape. That's it. Let's backtrack just a bit. In Aliens, we had our characters dealing with a situation trying to survive for at least 17 days till help arrives. Then Bishop brings it to attention that the reactor is damaged, they don't have much time, they have to escape now. In Alien 3, Ripley discovers that she has one inside of her, and it becomes a matter of kill the xenomorph, then kill her, do not let the alien end up in the company's hands. Okay, but what about the newborn? Where does he fall into this? So since we're talking about the xenomorphs now and the creatures, our alien queen develops a human reproductive system, things start to change with it. Kinda cool, I want to admit, this kinda adds a unique twist to it, so I'm gonna give it little points there. The newborn is birthed and he rejects the queen as his leader and he ends up slapping her face off and he accepts Ripley as his mother. This creature is one of the ugliest creatures in the Alien series. Our xenomorph was ugly as in, whoa, that's wild, that's cool. This is a different kind of ugly. This is ugly. But I don't want to trash it all the way because there are some positives about it. This creature actually has emotions, and it's actually kind of interesting because of the fact it shows more emotion than the usual xenomorph, which was just soulless, the way it acted towards the humans. I actually feel bad for it in the movie because of the fact that it has the mindset of an infant or a toddler that doesn't understand what he's doing, that he's harming these people, and he sees Ripley as his mother, and he doesn't understand why his mother eventually kills him. You even hear him call out mommy allegedly at one scene. Just listen. Am I the only one hearing that? It's sad, because the creature is pretty much just the creation of man tampering around. It's a byproduct, essentially. It didn't ask for this life. It didn't understand why its mother did what it did. So I gotta dive into it and give some props right there. Plenty of xenomorphs in the movie. They return back to the warrior alien. No crazy like runner or no other new designs other than the newborn itself. The xenomorphs are more fleshy this time around, kind of like the runner was. No real explanation is actually given in the movie, with the exception of the fact that basically, possibly because of the fact it has some human DNA, there may be some changes and some alterations. That's something I want to speculate. Nothing official that's in the movie, though, or mentioned that I even recall. So let's check some of the boxes of what Alien Resurrection does right. The underwater scene is really shot well, and it remains one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. The soundtrack and score is beautiful, and it helps give this movie a mysterious, eerie tone. I can't help but say and sing its praise, honestly, every time I hear it. I wish it was on Spotify. Sigourney Weaver's performance and the newborn, as I mentioned, just the biggest takeaway is the story that's told. It just feels like it drops off at one point and becomes less compelling and just very simple and straightforward. Forced humor at points, certain scenes seem over the top. This scene right here makes me think of that Spongebob episode where Plankton is controlling Spongebob as he's walking. Like, did the chestburster just take control of this guy? Look how many gunshots he takes. He's still walking. Opinions will vary in this movie. I'm conflicted on whether I consider Alien 3 or Alien Resurrection better when I put it all together. It's not perfect by any means. It remains the final Alien movie in the original series to this day involving Ripley's story. Like the Alien 3 line, Alien Resurrection kind of has a small confined line, but there's still room to work with in the future. First figure I'll cover is the Xenomorph Warrior. Unlike the prior Alien figures in the respective movie, there is no ultimate release of the Xenomorph, just the normal wave release. I really wouldn't put it past Neca to do an ultimate release of this figure. It would be a simple release, but with new packaging, with the movie poster on the front. This release only included the Xenomorph by itself. If Neca does take this a bit further, I would love to see an original sculpted facehugger, chestburster, and an egg. Just because I do remember they were a little bit different in the movie, and I think there'd be a nice touch of detail to throw those accessories in. Neca had teased Ripley 8 for a few years before the figure had even came out, marking the final Ripley figure from the original 4 movies. One of my favorite things about this is the addition of the basketball. If you don't know the story, after a few tries, Weaver actually nailed this shot, and I think that's so awesome. It's a nice little wink towards the fans if you know it, and if you don't, it's a cool thing to learn about once you buy this figure, or just curious looking it up. It's pretty iconic, so props to NECA on their part on adding this. Next up, we have the newborn, and it really took some pressure to get NECA to even do this. They shied away from releasing it for years, and I think it was because of the fact that this was a highly unpopular design and creature from the movies. But fortunately for us, we did get it. And as a bonus, they included a stand. I'm so happy that this joined my collection. It's one of the ugliest creatures to exist, as I've said, and I remember thinking for years, NECA's gotta do it. They have to do it. And I always thought they probably won't because they probably will see it as a waste of time just creating an entire mold to release it once. Today, this is actually the only release for this figure. It was given the ultimate treatment right from the get-go, and I think it was supposed to be part of the wave when it actually came out. And this actually marked the end of the Alien series and its waves before everything just went to the ultimate treatment from there. Finally, they did give us the Queen from this movie. I actually do not have this Queen. I passed on it because of the fact that I'm more of a bigger fan of the Aliens design, the blue. I think it's more iconic in general, but I won't say the brown is bad. It was just going to be kind of an impulsive purchase if I would have got it, and maybe someday I will spin around and grab it, but right now it's not very high in the list if they do release it. This, people, is where the Alien Resurrection line sits as of today. If NECA were to hypothetically dive a little deeper, there's only 2 things I can think of them releasing, and that would be the failed Ripley clone set with LED lights. I think that'd be really unsettling and eerie to have on the collector walls or shelves, whatever you want to consider it. It would be something that I think is a must and they got to dive into. Other than that, maybe a weapons set with various different weapons from the movie itself. And weapon packs are not just popular with the Alien fans. You know, anybody that likes collecting weapons in general would love to have this. You know, people love army building for their collection, and just buying a set of weapons would go over well with everybody. Everybody wins, you know. So let me know what you think in the comment sections. I think there is a little bit more to explore in this movie.